and the topic, a well-architected journey from startup to scale up. So the point of this is to give you an introduction to the AWS Well-Architected framework, about how Anaeko delivers that process, but most importantly, hear from those who've undergone it. That includes Chris Johnson from Adoreboard, Jerry Murta from RegTech, and Jason Lee from Exploristics, because they can explain to you their experience of the process. And for those of you who are looking at the journey that they've been on, they can present their perspectives of it, and we'll have this a highly interactive session. So if during the course of the presentation and speaker and panel discussions you have questions, you can drop them in the chat, and then I'm really glad to see people have their cameras on. It's always welcomed here, so that we'd much rather you voice your questions, and I'll give time for that during the session. So the agenda, I will provide an introduction to Anaeko data engineers and what we do. I'll ask Roger Wallace and Alan Taylor, who are here from Anaeko, to describe our flavor of the well-architected review. We'll go into the meat of the session with a panel discussion from Jerry, Jason, and Chris, and then it's an open audience questions. And if you want to follow up for the well-architected review, it's a service that Anaeko provides for free, and we'll share details on how to do that afterwards. So first about Anaeko, we are an AWS services partner, and what that means is we provide professional services to companies large and small to help them make the most value of Amazon Web Services. And we are a multi-cloud data and analytics company, so that we work not just with AWS, but with other platforms. But today's session is really how to take the most advantage from the AWS platform and services, which are categorized as the leading cloud provider for public cloud, and have such a range of services that customers can find it a challenge to keep abreast of the changes. And part of what we do is focus in a specific area to help people through that process. And we're a small company. We're about 60 people. We've been operating since 2004, so we've been on a long journey in that time. And we've worked with a lot of companies over that time, including the three who are on our panel. And because of the size and nature, and it's in the industry in general, there's a need for collaboration. I think even our largest customers and partners recognize that it's an ecosystem play. And so our vision is to be a go-to collaboration partner to build and operate secure, sustainable, and ethical data and analytics platforms. And our mission is to deliver environmental and societal benefit through timely access to quality data. So the customers we work with, we seek and invest into those that are going to deliver benefit in environment, in the society, for patients' health. And so we work across many sectors, both with the technology providers and service providers who deliver in there to those, as well as direct with those government and arm's length bodies. And so we're here to talk about the well-architected review process. And AWS created a framework that they have iterated over a number of years to really take an industry and a use case agnostic approach to how you can focus around 6 key perspectives. So operational excellence is one of those pillars. How are you running and monitoring systems efficiently? And that's for those organizations that are scaling up, and you'll hear from our discussion panelists today, those that are trying to improve their operational experience because they want to go 10x scale. The performance efficiency, when you're using compute resources and other cloud resources, you want to be efficient for a number of reasons, primarily because you're delivering a customer experience and a user experience that has been driven by the leading technology companies in the world. And so there's a consumer expectation that even if you're a startup in Northern Ireland, you have to deliver that same performance, efficiency, and experience. But that leads into cost because you're using on-demand cloud services based on the time you're using it. And so the more efficient you are, also helps drive cost optimization. And with the companies we're speaking with today, they've been on a journey from a number of years, and the importance against these pillars change. So you could say at one stage you want to acquire a customer at all cost, and then when you have lots of customers, you want to manage that customer down. So security is paramount in everything that any technology or any business does at the moment. There has been a heightened amount of cyber attacks, and the UK is currently the third in the world as the most targeted country after the US and Ukraine for cyber attacks. And during the pandemic, where health data and remote working changed the security perimeters of most services, those hackers and scammers found different avenues to attack businesses and individuals, and so this is something that always remains paramount. Reliability, the service needs to run and be dependable. Sorry, let me move this window out here. And from a sustainability perspective, moving to cloud is a sustainable option. AWS themselves pride themselves on the green agenda they drive. And so there is a huge and increasing interest in the sustainability pillar that was recently added. So Anaeko has a process that we take you through this that considers the organization, engineering, and the data and security. And I'm not going to spend much time talking about that because I'll ask one of my colleagues here to talk through how we apply that. But the reason we do this is it's a free service that we provide as an AWS services partner in line with their framework. And our goal is, on one side, to be a good partner to Amazon Web Services, but it's not without benefit to us. We get to know an organization. We may be returning to somebody we've worked with in the past, a customer, or we're coming with a new client and taking a perspective. And we have a range of productized offers, an example of which is shown here. And we have them listed on our website, on the AWS Marketplace, and on Government Cloud, G-Cloud, so that our customers can procure something that's short and sharp, like a security refresh conducted in 1 month, or an observability dashboard that takes them a step forward in the journey to then a longer service, and then into the teams that we support with companies that need that ongoing support in evolving and enhancing their services. So that's the introduction to Anaeko and what we do and why we work as an AWS services partner. And I'm now going to pass over to Roger Wallace, who will describe the well-architected review process as we apply it.
Thanks, Colin. You covered quite a lot there, talking about the pillars of the well-architected review. So I'm not going to go over that, the details of the actual framework that AWS have set out. I want to talk more about our process and what that would mean in practice if you got involved with it. I mean, just to say that the well-architected review been around, and the framework has been around since 2015 when there was a white paper released, and it's a guide for best practice that includes a mechanism for comparing yourselves against the collected and distilled experience of hundreds of AWS customers and also AWS architects. I mean, it covers every aspect of software delivery and planning, design, delivering it, operating it, and supporting it. So my first impressions of the framework when I saw it was, wow, this is so broad, so detailed in its coverage. It's such a rich resource of advice and guidance, best practice. Yeah. But the truth is, my second impression of the AWS framework was, wow, this is so broad. It's so detailed. I mean, the coverage is huge. How do we even start? How do we leverage that? And it's important to recognize, I guess, that the framework itself is a guide for continuous improvement. Okay? It's not something that has a finish line. One thing, they've updated it twice this year, and I've had to just go recently through a review of all of that and dig into that detail, so our customers don't have to, I suppose. It's not something like you finish and win. It's something that you return to again and again for advice and guidance. And in that framework, it covers so many things, and not everything in there is relevant to everybody, or it may just not be relevant today, and it might be something you want to consider in the future. I mean, there's great advice in there on how you design, build, and operate distributed computing solutions across the global installations. But there's plenty of companies in the UK and Ireland who just don't need that, right? It's not something that is an immediate concern. So our thoughts were, how do we narrow the focus of this well-architected review, the framework? Take the framework and keep the impact of it, keep the value of the process, but narrow that focus and make it more digestible. And so we decided that we needed to focus on our customers, right? What is happening with customers today? What are their concerns today? What are their priorities today? What are their near-term goals, right? We want the outcome of any review process that we go through to be immediately useful, to have an actionable kind of element to it that you can take away and do something, okay? So it's not just a review for review's sake, there's an outcome that you can leverage. A simple change might be suggested, but it might take 1 or 2 days of planning or something like that, or we might have a 1 month or a 3 month kind of project that you might want to take on, but always the goal is to support the organization's priorities. So what we decided to do is set out a process that was simple, repeatable, and draws as little as possible on our customers' time, because realistically, senior management are not going to embrace a process that takes weeks of effort and draws key staff away from their real day-to-day responsibilities. And what we came up with was a 3-step interview-driven process. 1 interview per week over 3 weeks, which you can see in the diagram. When we report on our findings in a 4th week. So it's a 1, 2, 3, 4 stands out clearly in the diagram. Although I see it up there, I should just draw your attention to the kind of initial scoping questionnaire, which is very short, it's a few questions, and an initial kind of setup call where we kind of explain the process and arrange these interviews in the 1, 2, 3 step. So what are these interviews? What do they involve? What exactly happens? Okay, so well, the first one, week 1, is a wide-ranging discussion on your organization, your planning, your teams, your processes, and the interactions of those processes and those teams. And it's a way for us to get familiar with you, get familiar with your company structure, and just to listen. We discover your concerns, we discover your priorities, and we also cover a lot of ground within the AWS framework on cost optimization and operational excellence, just to call back to those pillars that Colin mentioned. Already, as we listen, right, we're starting to think of areas where your organization is strong, because we want to recognize that, but we also want to move on from it so that we can focus on areas where we could maybe offer advice, maybe make suggestions of improvements, obviously in line with the AWS framework. And then we move on to week 2, That's the in the diagram, it's called the engineering workshop. Now, the second meeting, week 2, is strongly informed by what we learned in the first, but it's a shift in focus, and it may require different people because we're going to dig into the technical engineering side of the organization. We're going to lead a discussion about the platform choices that you make, the performance characteristics that you have on your goals in that area, practical discussions about monitoring, alerting, and automation. Now, you might expect that it's during this meeting that we find all the things that we need to work on and all of the recommendations. And honestly, that was my expectation when we set out on this journey. But it turns out not to be the case because, frankly, without exception, everyone we talk to is doing the right thing. They're actively trying to make the best engineering choices that they can. So what comes out of this session are usually ideas for future change, expansion plans, or ambitions for new features and capabilities. And this is the area around the engineering pillars of reliability and performance, for example. So after the engineering workshop in week 2, we're going to week 3, which is the security side of things. And this is our final third meeting. And it's the ever important and frequently evolving domain of security, and in particular, data security. And on this topic, the AWS Well-Architected framework is very exacting. And the reality is that security is never really finished. It's a continual process. And there are always things that you need to look at and improve. And that's kind of the end of your involvement in this process, in that we have gone through the 3 interviews, and it's over to us. And what we have to do is review what we've heard, review your priorities, and report back to you. Okay, so that leads us into delivering a report in week 4. What we deliver are actually 2 separate reports, because there is an AWS framework tool that is built in and provided by Amazon, and it generates a detailed report about your organization and where it sits within the framework, and it offers a lot of detail, and it's a reflection of the scope of the framework itself, really. As part of our process, we work through that for you on your behalf, and as we do this, we kind of include all the evidence from our discussions, and we add our thinking and observations on top of that, and we record any decisions that are made. So it's all there, it's all recorded, it's available as a record of the process. And that's the one report that you get that comes from the Well-Architected tool itself. But we also provide a separate bespoke report, and it focuses on what we have discovered about your organization. And we call out what you're doing well. It's so important to recognize what you're doing well, we think. And it's also a short document, it's a short format, and we try and make it readable, approachable, because it's actually designed to be shared. Okay, so it's designed to be shared internally, so that people who were not directly involved in the process get a clear, simple breakdown of our observations and the recommendations that have come out of it. And in that report, we include Anaeko recommendations for some simple things that you might want to fold into your existing process, things that might be part of your own continuous development and operational processes. But we also include a small number, and it's usually 3, short projects targeted at the priorities that we've uncovered, and they're based on what we've heard about your own future ambitions. These projects are targeted in scope, and they're designed to be very focused, completable in a month, or at most 3 months. That would be the kind of scale of the kind of thing that we're going to recommend. So I'm going to finish off by saying that it's important to us that, having gone through our process, you get a clear picture of where you are and what you're doing well, but critically that you get impartial advice that's both actionable and achievable and targeted at your own priority.
Okay, thank you very much, Roger. So Roger leads our well-architected reviews, but he is joined by one of our other experts, Alan Taylor, who formerly worked with Amazon Web Services. So he's been in the belly of the beast, but also delivering for Anaeko and our customers. And Alan's going to touch now on the typical questions that we get asked when we're first starting a review.
Yeah, so thanks, Colin. So Colin and Roger have obviously very capably described the what and the how of the process. So what it is and how we deliver that from an eco perspective. And I just want to look at some of the typical questions that clients might ask, the concerns that they might have in terms of taking on the review process. And so the first of those is budget. So they might say, well, we don't have any budget. And as we've already explained, the service is free. So we offer free independent advice. There's no charge for the review. There's no obligation to procure a follow-on service from Anaeko, even though we'd hope you would. And again, that's one of the self-interest pieces that Colin's already mentioned. Obviously, why does Anaeko do it? So why do the customers want to do a review, and why would we offer that for free? The second point I want to, or typical question I want to raise is, if we can cue it. So companies say to us, well, our engineers are very clever people. They know what they're doing. They're domain experts. What makes you think that you can do better than that? And looking at the team here today, obviously, to put it kindly, we all are quite mature. We've been around the block. We've got the scars to show for the various startups and scale-up, projects that we've been involved in over the years, and we have a lot to offer, obviously, in terms of expertise, skills, and just knowledge accumulated over the years. But the thing is, companies do have very clever people. We have them on the panel today. Lots of domain knowledge, lots of great technical skills, and it's most likely, as Roger described earlier, they've created very elegant services and solution architectures. So this isn't really about that. It's more a question of the product journey and different priorities at different stages of that journey. So the focus of a startup company moving through the phases from an idea to a proof of concept through alpha and beta releases is all about delighting their early adopter customers with innovative features. So they're trying to capture the market. The service level expectations of those early adopters are appropriate for an alpha or beta service, so they're not very high. So when moving to a scale-up, so we're talking about journey from startup to scale-up. Scale-up's about growing the customer base. It's dealing with expectations of a mature product on a platform like AWS, with very stringent service level agreements coming into the fold. And the priorities are different. So what was good enough for a startup phase might not be good enough for the scale-up phase and beyond. So it requires a mind shift to focus on those new priorities. And, again, Roger talked about priorities that we look at and the priorities that the customers allude to whenever we look at carrying out a review. So the priorities are different. There needs to be a mindset change, and the priorities that existed previously, they may no longer be relevant or as relevant. The third item and question I want to talk about is basically what, and this is one that's real for the engineering teams, what if they find something's broken and that might cause us some internal embarrassment? Well, again, as Roger described in the process, it's a review. It's not an audit. We're not holding people's feet to the fire and asking difficult questions and showing up failures. It's about highlighting all the good practices and the good work that's been done, but looking at some of the issues. And we expect to find lots of issues, to be honest, major and minor issues. And if we don't, we haven't done our job properly as a team. So there can be many reasons for finding issues, and none of them really should be a source of embarrassment. And again, it's about the journey. So it's better to identify and mitigate those risks as early as possible and avoid any reputational damage later on through issues. The fourth point I want to talk about is, I suppose, product features. So companies might say to us, well, we have a huge range of product features in our backlog that we want to develop. We don't have much time. Time is precious. We want to delight our investors and customers with new features. And we're not really interested, again, in priorities such as necessarily cost or sustainability. So that's precisely why it's useful to get an independent review and potentially to get some external help with the remediation list for those issues. And that can be quite an onerous thing when you've got a huge backlog of features to develop. Our process, the Anaeko process, takes what is an extremely useful mechanism from AWS, and it makes it very efficient, more efficient, by breaking it into what Roger describes as 3 manageable blocks of meetings, and taking what is a very long document that the AWS Well-Architected review tool produces with hundreds of questions and boiling that down into a concise report and a set of recommendations. So hopefully that's clear. Those are 4 typical questions. I mean, I'm sure there are lots more, and maybe we'll get some on this session. But hopefully it's clear that well-architected review is a useful exercise, and it's clear why Anaeko offers this service for free.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Alan. You've heard our perspective, but of course today is all about our panelists. And we have 3 great examples here. Jerry Murta, founder and chief product officer from RegTech, Jason Lee, head of product management and development at Exploristics, and Chris Johnson, CEO at Adoreboard. And what I'll do is ask each of them to introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about the stage of their business growth, why they chose AWS, and then we'll get everyone in together to talk through their experience of the process and lessons learned for those of you who want to go through. So Jerry, I'm going to pass over to you now. If you want to maybe first of all introduce yourself, and I've got a slide from you on RegTech to explain what you do.
Sure, thanks Colin. Hi everyone, so my name is Jerry Murta. I'm the co-founder and chief product officer of RegTech. My background is leading large-scale regulatory and digital transformation programs in many of the world's leading financial institutions. And through that experience, I saw an opportunity to help harness technology in order to drive efficiencies in that process. So essentially, we provide that simple, clear path to compliance for firms. We reduce their risk and cost of their compliance activity within the context of their overall kind of strategic goals as well. We're almost like a bridge or a digital thread through a number of key activities with the value life cycles as outlined in the slide here, essentially helping firms understand the horizon of new regulations as they come up, driving efficiencies in terms of the project setup through pre-populated templates, and integrated program management reporting capability. We also help them sequence complex tasks, so client outreach activities and things like that, which are often required as part of regulatory go live. And finally, we record all the steps that are undertaken for our regulated entities, because oftentimes they need to be able to provide that information back to their regulators and retain that information for up to 7 years. So we provide that in one central view. And I guess that the reason for choosing AWS is our clients are global. We wanted something that could scale, but also we wanted something that, from a startup perspective, we could have very quick time to market. To start to be able to experiment and prototype and iterate as we grew from prototype into our startup piece.
Yeah, so thanks, Jerry. We described this as from startup to scale up, and for clarity, can you explain to people the stage of that business growth you were at when you considered the well-architected review?
Sure, yeah. So we're in the kind of the transition piece between startup and scale up. So we are finding our product market fit. Our customers are a mixture of large listed firms. They are global in nature. So we work with firms in Africa, Europe and the US, but we are in that kind of transition between honing our platform and being able to scale up. So again, another reason why before we kind of ramped up our offering, we wanted to make sure that the infrastructure that we had was well architected and could support our growth ambitions.
So Jerry, you kindly sent in a great slide here that I'll before I stop sharing, allow you to maybe refer to. This is the pillars that we described there, and the RegTech interest in each of those. Maybe if you want to comment briefly on this.
Sure, yeah. And I guess for us, as a startup, it's about being clear what our USPs are, our unique selling points, and why are we different from other, say, compliance platforms or project management platforms in the industry. And we're designed from the ground up. So we're not a piece of software looking for a problem. We're built with years of experience in working with key personas within the compliance world. So key thing for us was time to value. Most compliance platforms, and I've been there, I've done it in my previous consultancy life, oftentimes it takes 6 months plus. But in a regulated world, it's all about time to value. So for us, we wanted to have the ability to have a SaaS platform that was self-service and firms could sign up to it immediately. So that then made us think about, well, the pillars, as we mentioned there on the right-hand side, around our operational excellence, security is key, also reliability and performance efficiency as well, because if it's not performant, then we will lose people at that sign-up piece. We also wanted the ability to provide firms with out-of-the-box templates. So an important aspect there is about cost optimization. So as we grow and we see ourselves being at the app store of regulations, essentially, where firms can come and subscribe to particular regulations that are applicable to them. But as we grow and that volume increases, then cost optimization is something that's going to be key for us as we scale our content further across more and more regulations. Another one that's important was our customers are regulated firms, and sustainability is a very important one. So there's new regulations within Europe called CSRD, which come into effect next year, the Corporate Sustainable Reporting Directive. And that requires firms to look not just at their own sustainability kind of performance, but also that of their suppliers as well. So if we are supplying into these regulated firms and firms within scope of the CSRD regulations, sustainability is something that's really important for us to be able to win business and continue business in the markets and the clients that we work with. And finally, just covering off some of the other key points, some of the other features around real-time chat and collaboration. So that's global, it needs to be instant, so that performance is really important. And then finally, I guess just touching off around the audit record. So again, as we retain all the evidence for up to 7 years as required by the regulations, our volume will grow. So we need to make sure that we do that in a secure way, but also it's optimized in terms of cost and also our sustainability in the longer term as well.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Jerry, for that introduction to RegTech and what you do. And that initial relevance of the pillars. Interestingly, you're delivering ESG compliance product, but leveraging the sustainability focus that the Well-Architected review recently added as the 6th pillar. I'm going to stop sharing now to go more freeform here and ask Jason from Exploristics. Jason, would you like to do similar to Jerry to describe Exploristics, what you offer, the stage of development you're at, and why you chose AWS?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Jason Lee. I'm head of product management and development at Exploristics. We're not a typical software company. We are a data analytics company within the life sciences sector. Our client base are anything from big pharma to small biotechs running clinical trials. So the majority of the company are statisticians, data scientists, statistical programmers who do the analytics, understand the disease areas, the therapeutics, etc. The company was born in 2009 by Aidan Flynn, and Aidan had an image. He was from the clinical trials background. He's been a lecturer at King's College London, etc. He's well versed in all of this, but he sees the problems in clinical trials, and about 90% fail, and they fail because they're not planned very well. The trials are run to get a drug to market. They're not run against well-defined endpoints, and things are achievable. So that's the drive of the company as a whole. But the idea is that behind a lot of these trial designs, it's Keras Cloud, which is the product that we're responsible for. So it's a simulation platform running large data sets, Monte Carlo data sets, to get simulations of a population with particular attributes that are based around the disease area, the sort of people that you would pull into a clinical trial, and then what we know about the compound. So it's all statistics. It's huge amounts of data. It's huge computing power. The original sort of versions of the product, as they were building towards a workable final solution, if you like, have been in various platforms, normally locally, and you start hitting limits with computing power, basically, and space. So AWS was chosen. We've got the computing power. We can ramp it up. We can ramp it down. We use instances as we need them. So we're not hogging, and it's not costing us a fortune to have big supercomputing. So we, like I say, have been around since 2009. The company is certainly not a startup anymore. And as a company, we're probably more in the scale-up area. The software is almost in a slightly different phase. It's almost at that scale-up point. Up until now, it's used as an internal service offering. So we wrap services around it. So our consultancy team lead that, and most of their work is done using Keras Cloud. As we all saw with COVID, how quickly can we get things through trials? That's one of the things that we've been offering since well before COVID, and it's become more of a thing. Obviously, there is red tape, but if you can design a trial and have enough data to prove that trial doesn't need 10,000 patients, but can be done with 1,000 patients with the right amount of efficacy, the FDA, the European similar bodies will approve it. So it becomes a very strong platform to speed things up. And AWS gives us that platform. It gives us the versatility of computing power. It gives us the services. It gives us the security. It gives us the ability to improve performance as new services come about. So the well-architected review for us was really about, what have we got? Can somebody externally come and tell us what's right, what we can do better, and is there anything wrong? We know security-wise, we're very conscious of security because it's big pharma. As Colin said earlier on, we're in the firing line straight away. We're aligned with some big names. It's there. It's public knowledge. So security is key. But are we doing it right? Is there anything we can do better? We can get security reviews done annually, biannually, whatever. But can we do it better anyway? Yeah. So we've got the security, we've got the performance, and now we've got a facility that can underline what we're doing right, what we can look to do better now and a bit into the future. And that document that you guys give us gives us internal leverage with non-IT people who just want those features.
Thanks, Jason. Before we kind of get a group discussion going, I want to give Chris Johnson an opportunity here. Chris is a CEO and founder of AdoreBoard. Explain what AdoreBoard does, and the same questions to contestant number 3, please.
Contestant number 3, thank you so much, Colin. So just a quick overview of what a Doorboard does. So we quantify employee and customer trust, and then we're predicting the dollar impact of resolving those friction points in both the customer and employee experience. Our customers range from Amazon, Allstate, Procter & Gamble. And just to give you an example, one of our customers, Healthscope, they're the largest private hospital in Australia. They have 47 hospitals. They're collecting in real time about 8,000 patient surveys a month. So you can imagine the significant amount of manual effort to review and get some actionable insight from that data. So what we do is we eliminate the manual analysis. Ultimately, the benefit of that is this idea of speed to insight. So how quickly can you take feedback from your patients and action that to actually improve the patient experience? And then secondly, we're predicting before they take an action what impact that could have on the operational metric and the bottom line dollar impact, which really provides the automatic business case for change. In the example of Healthscope, you know, they were able to identify things like ill-fitting pressure cuffs that were being fitted to the patients, delivering essentially punches every time the blood pressure cuff went off, because Baxter, who manufactured them, the nurses fitting them were not following the instructions, fitting the wrong color-coded pressure cuffs on the patients. We were able to predict a 10% increase in patient satisfaction if that was improved. They took the action, they were able to realize that benefit. So that's just a quick example. Allstate, for example, able to identify issues with their app, predict a 17% increase if they improved their app. They realized a 16.6% increase in their customer satisfaction and reduced their inbound calls to contact center by 47%. And just why our engagement with Anaeko was so important. We're finding, you know, 50% of our customers are within the Fortune 1000. 75% of our customers are in the US. And we talk about, from our perspective, this idea of paper process. So enterprise in the US and particularly the people that we're engaging with are actually introducing risk into their enterprise by bringing in third-party providers such as the Doorboard. And this was something that we identified as a core pain point, that we're actually trying to reduce our sales cycle by 50% based on having a well-architected, very explainable, very understandable architecture, that when you produce it to people within these large enterprises, that they get it, but also they see that, you know, we tick all the boxes. So the engagement with Anaeko was really to help us on that journey to help improve that metric on the sales cycle, but also in preparation for our ISO, which we've now got. So prior to Anaeko, we hadn't got the ISO 27001. What Anaeko did was, as part of the process, they drew up a very understandable. No, Jason, you mentioned that, you know, it's always hard for us to kind of, you know, translate the technical elements to business impact. So having a very clearly understandable report that kind of essentially identified how we would prepare for the ISO. So there's elements like our credential processes, our access control, our encryptions around our components that were being provided to our customers as part of the software. These were, and I think the point that was made by Roger, actionable and achievable, were the two elements that Roger mentioned. And they were the two elements that allowed us to proactively identify before ISO audit, you know, elements that we actioned and improved, that ultimately helped us in the journey to achieving that ISO status. So I know there's 6 pillars. We had security as our number one pillar. Maybe talk about the others, but that was the clear benefit from the engagement with Anaeko.
Right. Yeah. Thanks, Chris. So all 3 of those companies are have had, following ultimately the same journey, but at different stages and different kind of priorities and very different products and services. But I'd like to hear, you know, some of the what we sought to do, and the feedback that common questions that Alan described was to make how we can make the process easier. So do you want to maybe share with the audience here how you felt the process went? What your perception of it was before you went in, and then with the recommendations coming out, what kind of were there anything changed as a result of that? In any order, but maybe I'll pick Jerry first, just if we keep there and jump in.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Colin. And I guess that that's an important point that's kind of come through. So us as we were a startup whenever we undertook the Well-Architected review, and for us it's a resource availability. So what swung it for me was the how. It was actually the process that the Anaeko's process, in terms of look, it's a time-bound process. It's not going to go on for months and months and months. It's time-bound to the 3 weeks, and then the reports in the fourth week, and that allowed me to be able to factor that into our other book of work, and to be able to say yes, this is something that we can service from our side as well, to make sure we can free up the resources to make it as successful as possible. And I think to Roger's point, it's a very broad and deep, but pragmatic, I would say, as well, review, which allowed us to confirm some of the things that we already knew. And again, going back to John's point around, we've got a strong technology team, but there's always things that we don't know. So having that independent review really just helped reveal opportunities for us to factor into our longer term roadmap. So in terms of our budget cycles, etc., that shows best practice for us to aspire to. And I think, as Roger said, nothing's ever done. It's a journey, and it's all continually evolving with new best practice. So we can look to incorporate that as we grow as well.
So Jason, for you've got a big team, a lot of moving parts. How was it for you?
Yeah, for us, obviously, the development team is small in comparison to the rest of the business. That there is that difficulty that you have as a technical person, talking to the board, talking to the rest of the senior leadership team, and getting that cushion to deal with some technical debts, but also to avoid creating technical debts. And for us, that's always been a difficult thing. It's all about features. It's what people understand of software. This process allowed us, as Jerry said, it's concise. So it was a no-brainer from a time point of view. If I needed someone from the business in one of the meetings, they didn't have to be in the next one necessarily. As Roger said, it's the right people in the right meetings. And again, one thing for us that's, I guess, it's a common thing, technology companies, it is that unknowns, not knowing the unknowns, and having that validation of what you've done is right. For the technical people on my team, not so for me. I come in, I know it's solid, I see it's solid. Giving them validation from outside in a relatively short time frame. They are under pressure constantly. They're high performers. They don't want to stop, but at the same time, when you talk to them when they have a break, well, I don't know if this is valid.
Yeah.
This process, in a very unique way, in a very concise way, gave that validation.
Right.
That we're doing the right things. Don't panic about it. We've recently had a request for a change in the login to bring an SSO in. Because of this, we didn't have the same panic, if that makes sense. The guys know in recent history they've made the right choices in the past.
Wow.
that's been validated. And that I think when you've got a very small team, and we're not in big technology circles because of the nature of the work that we do, it's nice to get, and that for me is the biggest thing that this gave us. It wasn't what I was looking for. I was more looking for the report to give my leverage to do things.
Yeah.
But what came out of it was this amazing confidence boost for the technical team, and it pushed our QA team to go off and get training in cybersecurity. It's pushed other technical people who've seen the report but who weren't involved to say, oh wow, we want to be involved in that. That sounds like a good idea. And there are things that they're on the backlog, but the things that, so a lot of the things that Roger and Alan picked up on can be small side projects that people have got time to do, that they can develop skills with, that bring us benefits. So there's just all these little bits and pieces that just make it such a powerful process.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. And Chris, you came from a market, you came from the marketing side, so you've a technical team. Did that kind of change? Was there value here in communicating, knowing knowing that what had been delivered by your technical team was right, and helping communicate that? What was your experience?
Yeah, very much. And just really to reiterate, the points made by Jerry and Jason, we found the process clear, efficient, and easy is probably the summary. And I suppose that unique benefit being that, it was an independent third party providing, benchmarking against a well-established framework that, was from our provider. We're currently on Amazon. What it facilitated was a new conversation actually between myself and the engineering team, actually facilitated by Anaeko, which was actually to go beyond the 6 pillars, to actually think about, well, actually more broadly, how are we set up for scale, and thinking about, using the principles outlined in the 6 pieces to say, okay, our priorities today are probably security, performance, and reliability, so our top 3. That will flip as we start the scale, but I think it helped us really think through those 3 priorities and really elevate them to a broader discussion. Having the expertise of Roger in particular helped enable that, obviously with yourself, Colin, to kind of provide that viewpoint that was super clear.
Thanks, Chris. I'm conscious that we're coming to the end of the hour here, and I want to put up one slide at the end, just for those who are interested in this process of how to go through. And I'll thank my panelists and guests here shortly. But as a last statement from each of you, if we can keep it short, why, if there was one reason that you would recommend to somebody who hasn't gone through the process, what would you say? Who would it benefit, and why? Jerry, if you want to talk to that.
Good question. I think it's probably peace of mind. It's knowing that the technology, whenever you're dealing with customers or meeting with customers, you can be truthful in your responses to say, here's the standards that we've been built to, and we've passed an independent review. So I think it's that's probably, and knowing then in the future, there's no real gotchas to be concerned about. Right.
Thanks, Jerry. And Jason?
I think I would echo Jerry and just say a painless process, a much more painless process than I was expecting. Very little of all time. I would say the heavy lifting is done by Alan and Roger, and you don't feel like you've lost out by not doing more work. If that makes sense, you actually get a really useful report that you can do many things with, including the marketing and sales aspect and the internal benefits that you get.
Right. And Chris, what would you say to anyone thinking of this?
I suppose just building on all of the points mentioned, but I would focus on risk. So for me, risk was reduced as a result of this process, and the fact that we consider Anaeko as a trusted advisor in that process, both from an objective viewpoint from are we meeting the AWS standards, but also as someone that can add value to the conversation as well. So that's the summary from our perspective.
So thank you very much to our panelists, Chris, Jason, and Jerry. Thank you everyone for joining. One of the questions raised in the meeting chat was whether we sell solutions on continuous monitoring and reporting, and the answer is yes. You can get in touch with us, and for example, in the observability solutions, a follow-on we delivered with RegTech was a dashboard that gave an operational and a customer perspective of the platform and the use of it. If I now just very quickly share in front of me you can see there QR codes that can take you, there's my contact details, get in touch, and QR codes that will take you to the well-architected review offering on the marketplace or on our website. So it's a free service. We love hearing and discussing those companies here who are at various stages of their journey, and we'd really like you to get in touch because there are great lessons learned from working with the experts on our panel today, and their lessons we like to share. So thank you everyone, and thanks to Roger and Alan for their great expertise in delivering these. So thank you very much.